What is up, everybody? Welcome to the NumberBet Spreads podcast, where we go through every game, every matchup for the week, looking at the Las Vegas SuperContest lines and talking through the strategy of the picks that we would go with in that contest. I do it with my buddy Milo. Milo, what's up?
Not a whole lot, plugging away. We're finally pretty far into the season, and I think I have a pretty good handle on who I like and who I don't like, and where my model maybe is missing on some things. So I'm feeling pretty good.
The last week went pretty well. There were some bad beats, I would say. You were talking about the Houston game going to OT. It's always frustrating too when you've got a dog and it goes into OT and then they still don't cover, or vice versa. You've got the favorite who goes to OT and they barely miss the cover. I mean, the overtimes I talk about in DFS, I just wish they didn't even count. Like, don't do those. Once the four quarters are over, the DFS contest, they stop tracking the scoring and it's done. We don't have to worry about that additional variance.
You know what? I think that's true for golf. Like, if it goes to a playoff, they don't count the playoff holes for DFS because what was the year that Sergio won the Masters? I had both guys that went to the playoff. No, maybe I'm not going to score any more points. I'm not a fan of this. This doesn't change anything.
Yeah. So this week we've got no cancellations yet, right? So that's a positive. We do have a couple bye weeks and everything. That's normal. And the schedule has changed a little bit. But does anything stand out to you over the last week or so as trends that are maybe starting to form? Or for me, I think that we talked about early on in the season, the scoring trends going up, like all the league scoring increasing. I said that I didn't think that was noise or variance or anything. I thought that was going to continue to stay high. And we also are still seeing really high scoring. So have you noticed anything, any takeaways from the first however many weeks here?
I just agree with you on the scoring. It's clearly up across the board. And being a road favorite or being a road team doesn't seem to be quite the hindrance it once was to score, because obviously the crowd noise, the situation is different, and it just feels like these are almost neutral site games at this point.
Yeah, let's kick it off for Thursday game here, which we're just coming off a week with 2 Monday night games, which is awesome. Not going to have that this week, but we do have a Thursday game. It's the Eagles and the Giants. Eagles are favored by 4.5 here. The Eagles are talking about potentially working in Jalen Hurts a little bit more, not necessarily like taking over for Wentz or anything like that, but working him into some more packages, giving him some more responsibility, which I think will be interesting. And going up against the Giants, who are still like Daniel Jones, man, I don't know about him. It's crazy how the perspective of him was so high and now it's dropped so low. So what do you think here, a matchup of two bad teams?
If Philly was healthy, this would be an obvious Philly spot, 100%. Like you said, they're going to move Jalen Hurts in because obviously they're lacking with weapons offensively, and it seems like every week someone else gets hurt. Zach Ertz, Miles Sanders. My model has this at Philly -2, so it actually leans towards the Giants, which I'm not a fan of, and it's not quite high enough confidence-wise to trigger a bet, but it is awfully close. And God, some of these Thursday night games, you just worry about teams and injuries, and Philly has more than anyone. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but if I'm backing anyone in this game, it's Daniel Jones and the Giants.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I'm up to all the defensive injuries they have, but I know offense, just to catch everyone up, like Zach Ertz got hurt. He's going to be out. They already had Goddard out, so they're starting tight end now is Richard Rodgers. They're going to get Deshaun Jackson back, which sounds great, but I think they are anyway. But Miles Sanders is out as well. So it's a mess over there, man. It's going to be Wentz throwing to a bunch of guys, again, that are barely can make an NFL roster, I'd say, for the most part.
Yeah, we've already done this Boston Scott DFS chalk week, and it did not go very well. So not looking forward to that on the showdown slate Thursday night, but have a feeling that's what's going to end up happening.
Yeah, I think if I had to take a side, I'd take just the points in the Giants there, 4.5. But I mean, this is not a game I'd want to make a stand on and take a side and feel very confident about it. So let's move on to the Sunday games. We got the Browns And the Bengals at home, but they're 3-point underdogs here. The Browns got destroyed by Pittsburgh, as we saw coming last week, and against the Bengals, a matchup we've already seen before. This is a repeat of a match we saw earlier in the season. The Bengals didn't have that much trouble with the defense. Like, they put up a lot of yards, and some of it was garbage time, but that was the game that their starting tight end got hurt, and we're now coming off a game where A.J. Green finally got involved. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bengals offense do better than people are expecting here.
Yeah, I agree with you. My model here has this at around 2-point spread, so not really an edge, and not a whole lot that really interests me in this game completely. Like you said, we saw it before in week 2. At the time, you could say that Cincinnati was more of an unknown, and so was Cleveland, just because they still had the hype, but we didn't really trust them. But I just thought, I don't care if Cleveland's 4-2. I don't trust them. Cincinnati looks way better than everybody thought they were going to be. They do have offensive weapons, provided Joe Mixon is completely healthy, which I'm assuming he is at this point. I'm kind of leaning towards them, and it's more of a bet against Cleveland than it is a bet on Cincinnati, but not a game I'm very excited about, and probably something I'm going to stay away from for the most part.
I don't have a super strong lean here. My line, I have it at 2, so there would be a little bit of value there on the Bengals, but there's also half a point line value based on the current Vegas line right now, which is 3.5. So like, either way, you could look at there being value, make a case for there being value on either of these sides. And I don't have a super strong lean. If I had to pick a side, I think I would pick the Bengals, though. Let's move on to the Cowboys and the Washington football team. The Washington football team are at home. This is a pick 'em, and we just saw Andy Dalton come off one of the worst games you could ever imagine on prime time. He looked horrible. Not completely his fault, I would say. I'd say the offensive line is a big reason for the trouble there. They are just down to all backups now, essentially. I didn't see the status of the guys that got hurt in the Monday night game, but I'm not expecting that Andy Dalton's going to have much time to throw. And I think it's going to be tougher for Zeke to get his rushing yardage, considering the additional focus that'll be put on him and the offensive line issues. So I think along with most people, are as low on the Cowboys as you could have imagined being, even after the Dak injury. I don't think people expected this big of a drop-off.
I certainly did not. In the leagues where I had Dak, I went out and picked up Andy Dalton and just plugged him in and assumed I'd get 75% of the production. And yeah, that was a no. That didn't exactly work out too well. Like you said, the Washington defensive line is their best asset. The Dallas offensive line is, well, besides the defense, one of the worst things they have going for them. And I make this game out Washington minus 0.5, if you can believe it, is actually how it grades out in my model, which if I'd have told you that 5 weeks ago, you would have said that I was completely insane to have Washington grading out over Dallas. But here we are, and I can't do it. I don't care. I can't do it. I still think that there's so much talent offensively for Dallas. There's such a lack of talent on offense for Washington that they should almost stumble their way to like 17 to 20 points, which might be enough because Kyle Allen just likes to hand the ball off to the other team every now and again. So, I mean, 3 games into this slate, I'm already thinking one of them I'm kind of interested in, and 2 of them I'm just going to stay away from.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we have the same line, so there's that. But yeah, it looks like current line Vegas has it at -1. So again, it's not that big of a difference we're talking about from going a pick 'em to 1 point or half a point. So I don't want to touch this game, man. It's too big of a range of outcomes, too much volatility. Why even try to guess on this? There are a couple shots that I'm going to take in DFS. I see an angle with on the Cowboys, which I'll cover that in the DFS content. Not going to let that slip here. But aside from that, and then McLaurin too, I'll give that one away. I think he's going to be a pretty obvious play this week. But I think from a betting perspective, you just stay away for now and get some more information to go off of before trying to cap the Cowboys. Mostly. Washington, I feel pretty good about understanding their strength, but the Cowboys with that offensive line and with Dalton back there, I have no idea what to expect from them, if last week was a fluke or not. All right, let's move on to the Falcons. We're at home against the Lions, and the Falcons are favored by 2.5, which last week is one thing I was talking about, just buying into the recency bias and punishing people for that. Essentially, I mean, in DFS, that's everyone on that subscribed to Numberball essentially made a ton of money because they were stacking Matt Ryan and Ridley and Julio and Jefferson. But I don't know what to make of this line here. Like, are people buying back into the Falcons a little bit? Is Detroit that bad, or am I higher on the Falcons still than the public? I have it at -2, so it doesn't look like it, but I would have thought that people wouldn't flip their stances this quickly already.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I have it as -0.5. So not really, well, it may seem like a few points. It's not really a lot considering where the line is. We're not really jumping over a key number. This is essentially still pick the winner. So I have a slight lean to Detroit, but I'm with you. This Atlanta team, all of a sudden, the defense played well, or was it that Kirk Cousins played so badly? I'm not really sure where the truth lies in that. Because, if a quarterback turns the ball over 3 times in one half, you had to think someone did something correct for Atlanta defensively to make that happen. Detroit, though, they didn't have much of a sweat this past weekend, just kind of easily rolled into Jacksonville. From a perspective of just looking at this, is Detroit going to win 2 consecutive road games? I mean, that's my only thing, is that I just can't see that. It's kind of like last week what I said, is Kansas City really going to lose 2 games in a row, to really boil it down to simple terms? And I have some apprehension with backing Detroit on the road again. And even though the model kind of leans Detroit, I kind of like Atlanta for some reason. I don't know why. Kind of all the things you said. Maybe it's just that having everybody healthy for the first time on offense means a great deal. I mean, a healthy Julio looked like a healthy Julio last week.
Well, exactly. I think that's a big part of it. So, like, how could you be surprised that the offense looks so much better with a healthy Julio in there? I mean, come on. Like, even Ridley was banged up a bit, and even Gage was banged up for a couple, 2-3 weeks with, it was either a shoulder or a knee and a concussion. Just people wrote that offense off way too quickly. I see this being an absolute shootout because you've got 2 teams who I think want to basically be centered around their pass offenses, their quarterbacks, and aren't going to be able to really stop either pass offense on the other side. So it's a total shootout. What I was trying to get at, I would have thought that I'm going to be higher on Atlanta than the field, but with the projected line, what it is, that's not what it's showing me. I would have thought that I would be betting Atlanta here. I don't feel comfortable betting on Detroit. So it's just a weird situation. If I had to pick a side, I would pick Atlanta, even though I'm showing half a point of value or whatever on the Lions. Let's move on to the next game. We've got the Saints at home against the Panthers, and this is a 7.5 point spread, which is pretty big, but the Saints should get Michael Thomas back this week, which is noteworthy, I would say. And Drew Brees, I would say, prove some doubters wrong in a sense that last game, maybe. Chuck the ball deep a couple times, make of it what you will. But I don't think that this is like everyone being super low on the Saints right now.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting spot where last week I think a lot of us were off of Carolina and kind of leaned towards the Bears from a betting perspective. So it doesn't make any sense, but I really like Carolina in this spot here against New Orleans. My model grades it out of too many points. It makes New Orleans only about -3, 3.5. So that's a ton of value on Carolina. Teddy Bridgewater has been fantastic in his career as an underdog. And say what you will, but it took a heroic second half and effort to even beat the Chargers 2 weeks ago. Very easily, this Saints team has found themselves in a hole against Detroit, against the Chargers. So it's not exactly a team that starts fast and kind of gets the ball moving. Of course, having Michael Thomas back will help, but I just still don't quite buy into them. And I think the Carolina defense has been a little bit better than everybody wants to give them credit for, despite obviously losing last week to Nick Foles. But 7.5 just feels like too many, and I will very happily be on Carolina in this spot. I'm hoping you're going to come join me on this trip, but we'll see.
No, yeah, this one's, I'd say, pretty easy to take the Panthers here. I have it at 5.5, but again, as we're talking about key numbers, like that's a pretty big difference to be able to get 7.5 here. So, yeah, it makes sense to take the Panthers. I do think this is a game that is likely to be competitive towards the end and come down to a score. So, of course, you're taking the 7.5, and we'll see how much of an impact Mike Thomas makes. I assume that he's going to be just back to full roll and everything, but keep in mind that was a disciplinary reason that he missed that last game. I don't know how much in the doghouse he is in there, but I don't know. Again, it just adds a little bit to the hesitation to wanting to back New Orleans at all. All right, let's move to the next game. We've got the Bills and the Jets. Bills, a team that has disappointed the last couple of weeks, I would say, and the Jets, who have disappointed all season. But that last week, man, I don't know if you caught much of that. You probably did, since it was one of the only 2 games on in the afternoon, but that was some ugly football.
I can't believe I was stuck watching that for a long stretch, especially when the Tampa Bay Green Bay game was at halftime. I'm sitting there thinking, can there be anything else on? Playoff baseball, golf, something? Nope, my golf bets didn't work. Nothing to watch there. Great. Here we are stuck with this. So this is a weird situation. My model continues to grade out the Jets slightly better than they are, despite how much I rate it and change it every single week. I just think it's historically they can't seem to be as bad as they have been, especially considering their opponents, but they've lost by double digits in every single game. This is a Buffalo get-right spot as far as I'm concerned. 2 weeks in a row, the Bills have struggled with Kansas City, with Tennessee. Now they get to play the worst team in football, and it's not close that they're the worst team in football. You know, this is going to be Josh Allen does this, Josh Allen does that, and all of a sudden it's going to be 35-3 at the end of the third quarter, and everybody's going to feel comfortable. So I'm going to be on the Bills, and it just feels like a very easy, as long as this game's under 14, I'll very happily take Buffalo.
Yeah, I think that this is just a team I've got to forget about the model with, because like you said, and like others have said with the Jets this season, for whatever reason, the numbers really favor them too much. Right now I've got the line at a ridiculous 8, which I don't buy into at all.
Yeah, mine's at 9.5. It's just like it feels like it's too many points, and I think it's a product of when you factor in the other teams. It's just they shouldn't be favored by this much, but you know the Jets are still the Jets, right?
Yeah, and Josh Allen has regressed a little bit, but which everyone expected. But yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, like DVOA, I guess you give a little boost to the Jets for schedule and stuff, but overall, it's just I can't make a case for the Jets here, regardless of how much the model likes it. It's just maybe the team I'm least likely to trust by the model is any game that the Jets are involved in. Is that fair for you as well?
I think so. I mean, because the Jets continue to grade out better than they should every week. And, you know, the reality is if you're in this contest and you have 5 games to pick from, I don't care what my model says. If it shoots out the Jets at this point, I'm just throwing that in the trash and moving on.
Do you get a read on of these games we've talked about, of this game, any of the other ones, which ones are going to be popular? Because I don't know that people are going to want to bet against the Jets in this situation, but it would seem like the public is more interested in betting against the Jets, even though a lot of the sharp people I talk to have their models grading the Jets out very highly.
I would assume the public would happily be on Buffalo in this spot, but you know, we've kind of gone over all these games, and I don't think we've touched on a really public team, or at least a team that's very public this year. A lot of the teams that have kind of struggled and have not been good to bettors, and the public is very fickle and very happy to go back to someone that has rewarded them time after time. And, you know, through 5 or 6 games this slate, I don't think there is anyone that's kind of there. It's more of the opposite of teams that haven't covered or teams that have let people down and disappointed. But I'm sure we're going to get some very public sides coming up here in the next few.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you could call the Cowboys a public side at this point with Andy Dalton under center and everything. And
they're winless against the spread. Them and the Jets are 0-for against the spread, which seems impossible.
That's crazy. Yeah, let's go to the Packers and the Texans. So we've got the Packers in Houston, 3.5 point spread here. What do you like, man? Is Aaron Rodgers going to come off of one of his worst games of his career and go back to what we saw earlier in the season from him?
Well, and this is where you talk about, a public situation. Everyone I talked to last week was like, oh, I love Green Bay. I love Green Bay. And we sat on the show and I was like, I'm all over Tampa. This feels like a fantastic Tampa spot. And finally, this is the week where Tampa's number one in DVOA on offense and defense. So if that's the case, you understand exactly what happened in that situation. This is a bounce back spot. Houston can't stop anybody. They have no defense. My model has this at Green Bay -6. So I see tremendous amounts of value taking the Packers. I don't care where the game is because, like we said, home field doesn't really matter. I assume this is going to be a very, very chalky DFS spot too of Rodgers, Jones, and Adams. And I'll be betting it Sunday.
The Texans have gone over the total in all but one of their games this season. And like you said, like we talked about with the game last week, you could argue that the Texans were the right side. And if you think that, then they went 0-4 against the spread with Bill O'Brien and could have gone 2-0 since the coaching change. I don't know how much weight you put into that or not, but Deshaun Watson has had two of his best games of the season. With Will Fuller being healthy and Cooks producing, they're getting production out of the tight end position as well. The passing offense looks great. But again, I would be more willing to bet on this being a shootout than being confident in either one of these sides. I could see it being competitive. I would probably lean towards the Texans and go against you here and just take the points, thinking that it's going to be competitive. But I buy your logic there and everything, and it does cause me to hesitate. And just hearing that from you would probably cause me to pass on this and pick another game instead. So yeah, I think this will be an interesting game. I could see a couple different angles to it, and mostly excited about it from a DFS perspective. I think that game's going to shoot out.
All right. Of course, right?
Yeah, I mean. Well, you say of course, but I don't think it's going to be that popular. So I think it's going to be kind of like the Falcons game last week, where it's just there's ways to get contrarian, like low ownership in a game that should shoot out, those are the best games to load up on. All right, let's move to the Seahawks and the Cardinals. This is a 3.5 point spread that the Seahawks are favored by the games in Arizona. Russell Wilson may be the favorite for MVP at this point, right? With Dak out of the picture and everything. And then Kyler Murray just playing unreal. I don't think he's in the MVP conversation, but he is playing pretty well. Yeah, a couple of rough games, but again, and another good one against Dallas.
I'm ready to anoint Arizona as the team that definitely beats up on bad teams. That seems to be kind of their MO, and anytime they're kind of pushed back against, they struggle. So here we have a situation where the Seattle defense grades out as one of the worst passing defenses, not only of this year, but maybe historically they're kind of on pace for, which seems hard to believe knowing the history. I thought my model was going to love Seattle in this spot. Plug everything in, and it says Seattle should be a 1.5 point favorite, so there's a slight lean on Arizona. Having said all that, I cannot take them. This is a funky spot. Seattle's coming off a bye. Arizona played on Monday night. So you have short week versus extra rest. That feels like a recipe for disaster. Seattle's going to put up points. It's just a question of Arizona can kind of stick with it. And I'm not ready to believe the Kenyon Drake breakout game is going to be consistent because I watched the other 5 weeks of the year. So I would be on Seattle here, but since my model kind of likes Arizona, I'm going to stay away. What do you think?
Yeah, so for one, let's start with Drake. But he did look good for most of that game, and then all of his value. The reason he had a good game is because Dallas had already checked out, and he busted the longest run of the season, and with a minute left in the game or something. So, yeah, Drake is not like revitalized the rushing offense now or anything like that. Anything you're like that's just stupid. But my model does like Arizona here a little bit, and I think with the reasoning you're giving, that's a good reason to stay away. The rest is probably a big factor here. So, yeah, I think I have it at 1.5. Yeah, 1.5. Plus, if they get AB, I mean, then AB is going to shoot that line. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. I'm trolling. But yeah, I think that Seattle's the better team, and they've got the rest advantage here.
Right, I'm in agreement.
Yeah, let's move on to the next game. We've got the Patriots and 49ers. This will be an interesting matchup. You've got the Patriots at home favored by 2, which I think at this point of the season, Vegas is basically saying like these are pretty equal opponents. I'd say around 2 is about home field advantage. The Niners are going to be missing Mostert. They are probably going to be playing McKinnon in like the lead back role. They've got Hasty that they can use, and Wilson, who's hurt / in the doghouse kind of. So it'll be interesting to see how that is all plays out, because I do think that's pretty meaningful for the 49ers, that the run game kind of makes everything else work. But of course, the defense is a huge part of what they do. And we saw once they got Verrett back, that defense looked a lot different, man. 2 weeks ago, without Verrett, they were just getting destroyed by Miami. And then last week, Verrett comes back, and it's a different defense. So how do you project them moving forward? Do you buy into this defense at all? I know you had your doubts about that offense.
I definitely did. And, this is a very weird game because I was all over New England last week, and that did not work out, despite their defense doing what they thought they were going to do. And we kind of talked about this in Slack as a company, that I was on San Francisco big time in that Sunday night game. Just felt like the right spot at the right time. And all of my instincts want me to take New England. This is Bill Belichick off a loss at home, West Coast team traveling east. San Francisco played the Sunday night game. They had their best looking game in 5 or 6 weeks, where kind of everything's working for them. But New England doesn't have any weapons on offense. It's the weirdest thing. San Francisco's defense being healthy really gives me pause. At the beginning of the week, I was ready to just load up on New England in the spot. But right now, I've tempered my expectations, and I've slowed myself down before I made any wagers on it, just because of that San Francisco defense being healthy. From a model perspective, my model has us as New England minus a 0.5 point. So it sees that there is some value taking San Francisco, and I'm completely torn on this game. Instincts say New England, model says San Francisco. So anytime I have a split, like I said, I just always kind of avoid it whenever it's a toss-up split like that between my model and what I'm thinking.
Yeah, this one's borderline for me as to like whether it would make my final picks or not, but I do have the edge on San Francisco. Again, it's a very small edge. I have it projected as a pick 'em, and the line is 2. So it's basically it's a pick, or it's close to it. So you talked about some really key points. I think one of the biggest things for me is that Jimmy looked healthy, and that was kind of my question about Miami. Was after seeing the game, like, all right, was that because he's hurt, or was that because he sucks? Because he has his issues, but he never looks that bad. And my hunch was that, all right, I think he was probably just hurt. And that, talk about the showdown slate, right? Like, Jimmy was my highest owned player. I was buying into the recency bias 100%. And I think that's where we're at here, where I buy into the Niners being more so what we saw every week except that Miami week. And I think that the offense is going to do well. Verrett's going to do well. And from what we saw from Cam that first week back, I'm not so sold on that offense doing well. Like you said, I think it just comes down to a lack of weapons. I don't think it comes down to any fault of Cam, really. I know that some people were criticizing him quite a bit during the games last week. I was looking on Twitter and everything, but I don't know, man. I think you get him some, like, for instance, if AB were to go there, which I think there are a lot of reasons why that would not be a place that he could go. But if he were to go, like, all of a sudden, I have zero concerns about that offense, because he actually would have a weapon. His best weapon right now is Edelman, and his second best weapon is James White, and that's it. Like, he's just, after that, there's a pretty big drop off. So, Yeah, I think I would buy into the Niners here, but it's kind of like borderline on whether I would actually have the confidence to put them in my final 5 or so. Any final thoughts here?
Yeah, the last thing I want to mention is after Mostert got hurt, that Niners offense kind of really slowed down in the second half on Sunday night. And knowing what Bill Belichick does, he's going to take Kittle out of the game. He's going to make Jimmy G hit those young receivers. And it's going to be a matter of if those young receivers can make plays, then by all means, San Francisco's going to be able to do something. And I don't know if McKinnon's going to be able to run the ball. I mean, all of us seem to have McKinnon in a bunch of fantasy leagues and best balls because of our preseason reads, and it seems like a great spot. But I'm scared of that New England defense, even though maybe I shouldn't be scared of them. Talk me off of my New England love, which seems really strange because, like we said, they have no weapons.
Yeah, I mean, I think New England has shown stuff at times, but I don't consider them, after seeing what I saw last week, as like an absolutely elite team or anything like that. And I guess not that the Niners are. I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like they're comparable teams. So like there's no reason to fear the Patriots when the team you'd be betting on is the Niners. That's just like they're borderline playoff teams, maybe. I would say is a fair way to categorize them. But with the run game slowing down at the end of that game, keep in mind a lot of that was hasty. And I don't think, I know people are going to disagree with this, plenty of people disagree with me. I don't think Hasty is going to have many opportunities this week. That's just, if McKinnon gets the ball, like why are we projecting him to do differently this week than he did earlier in the season when he got a bunch of work where he did well? I know it was against like the Jets and not necessarily a team as good as the Patriots, but yeah, I wouldn't be concerned because I think it would be McKinnon getting the work. But yeah, that's probably.
I have 19 years of apprehension betting against New England and New England. This scared me to this point, so I'm afraid.
Yeah, Brady's gone though, so you can rest easy. So we've got the Chiefs and Broncos next. This is in Denver, 9.5-point spread, which just that never seems enough to me for the Chiefs. But I have the line at 8.5. It's just like a mental thing of, man, no, the Chiefs are so much better. And Drew Lock, I think, looked pretty awful by of course, like the numbers and everything was 40% completion percentage, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, not very good. Still has a lot of defenders like, oh, well, he played way better than the numbers. I hope so. I mean, geez, he played worse than the numbers. I don't know how that's possible. But, yeah, what do you think here, man? Is this a team that can hang with the Chiefs? I just thinking, trying to think logically, I would think no way, even though the numbers say that they should stay close enough.
It's funny. My number's kind of grayed out similarly. I have the spread at exactly 9.5. It's not different in any way, shape, or form from what my computer thinks. And I cannot figure out Denver, I feel like. Just when I think I have them figured out, Drew Lock comes back and they look subpar, but that was good enough. I mean, 6 field goals is good enough to win an NFL game, apparently. I have some news for them. 6 field goals is not going to be enough against Kansas City. I don't care how soon Kansas City played. I don't care what the situation is. Kansas City is going to stumble their way to 24 points. That's just an automatic thing. If you believe that Denver is going to get you to 17, then I think you can make an argument to take Denver in this spot. But I don't believe Drew Lock can stumble his way to 17 consecutively or consistently. So if you're going to play it, I would play Kansas City, and I'm going to stay away from this one because I think it's pretty much spot on. There's no value in the number for me.
Yeah, the angle I could see from a coaching schematic perspective is that Pat Mahomes is going to do worse against teams that are able to create pressure without blitzing, I would say. And that's one reason I like the Niners in the Super Bowl last year, though. But Fangio's the same way, where he doesn't necessarily have to blitz to create pressure. We talked about the Steelers last week and how that's exactly how they create pressure. They blitz people, but you can create pressure while leaving extra guys in coverage. Like that's the perfect combo, of course, for facing a guy like Mahomes. As easy as that sounds, you're not going to find a ton of teams like that. They're able to create pressure, but also leave a lot of guys in coverage. The Niners are a team like that. The Patriots and the Broncos are 3 teams that would stand out. And I go, yeah, those teams kind of fit the defense that I'd like to face Mahomes, even though, again, I feel like Mahomes is going to destroy the Chiefs are going to destroy Denver. What do you think of Le'Veon's impact, being a Steelers fan, being that this is his first week that he could get integrated into that system?
So if he's in shape and motivated and the burst is still there, I think he'd be fantastic. I mean, why couldn't he come in, play 15 snaps, touch the ball 4 or 5 times, catch a few screens, maybe take a couple handoffs and do something great? I mean, this offense has a ton of weapons. It's pretty easy to run through bigger holes whenever look at the weapons that are there for you. The reason he's always so successful in Pittsburgh is his receiving numbers were fantastic. You know, when a team's worried about Antonio Brown running 55 yards down the sideline, they have a tendency to let the running back kind of leak out, and he catches a 5-yard pass that turns into 20. And the number of times I watched Roethlisberger dump off to Bell was immeasurable. And the amount of times that he turned a 2nd and 10 into a first down or a 3rd and 1, that helps a ton. It just keeps you moving the sticks. And if there's anything left in that tank, he's going to help them. And as a Steeler fan, it upsets me because I don't want him to do well. Maybe that, or the fact that I have a lot of CEH shares in places. So it's a double-edged sword that kind of hurts. But I hope he looks terrible and out of shape, to be honest with you.
I don't know, man. I would lean towards him probably not going. I think he's going to look good.
I said I hope. Okay, that's all I can do here is hope, right? I can't stop it. It already happened.
Yeah, 3 seasons ago, he was like unquestionably the best receiving running back in football. And you add him, if he's 80% of that or 70% of that in this offense, it's crazy. You think about what's a big reason he struggled with the Jets, run blocking, and the fact that there are no other weapons there and that defenses could just key in on him. And that'll be the last thing any team is worried about is Le'Veon Bell. I think that he's going to play essentially the Darrell Williams role, which won't impact your CEH shares if I'm right about that. But if Le'Veon Bell in that Darrell Williams role starts to perform really well, over time we could see that role increase and maybe CEH is spilled for...
No.
More, I don't know, man. Yeah, the more Le'Veon plays, the worse for you because he's only playing more if he's playing well.
Let me ask you: Has there ever been somebody that's gone from this much of a head coach disparity from week to week in a situation that you could think of? I can't think of anything even crazier where a situation where he was with the unquestioned worst head coach in the league and going to either the top or a top 3 coach in a span of 10 days. That just seems wild to me. And give Andy Reid some time, maybe a few more weeks to design some plays, which he will specifically for Bell and his skill set. And this offense is unfair.
Yep. Let's move on to the next game. We've got the Bucs and the Raiders. This is in Las Vegas, almost at Oakland. And it's a 3.5-point spread that the Bucs are favored by. Bucs impressing last week. Again, didn't catch you and I off guard. We saw that one coming. But what are you expecting against the Raiders they're off a bye week, right? They didn't play last week.
Correct. I messaged you earlier today. One game broke my model, and it was this. My model has this at Tampa Bay -12, which, as you can imagine, is quite a departure from -3.5. And we've talked about this before. If something seems so far off in your model, you normally pretty much have to throw it out because something is incorrect. But in this case, it is Tampa Bay being number 1 on DVOA on offense, being number 1 on DVOA on defense, and the Raiders do not grade out that well in terms of DVOA. So I get why the model's this way, and despite the fact that it seems like my number is probably incorrect and something's wrong with it, I still really like Tampa Bay. I understand that the Raiders are coming off a bye week and whatnot, but the Tampa Bay defense is really good. They shut down everybody that tries to run the ball, so now you're going to have the Raiders having to throw it a ton, which I realize it worked against Kansas City two weeks ago. And I'm hoping that maybe the public remembers that, but they're not. They're going to remember what Tampa Bay did last week. So I think this is going to be a very public side. You're going to see the public all over Tampa Bay, and that scares me off, even though I like them too.
Yeah, so before you said all that, I was going to say that I like the Raiders because I think everyone's going to be on Tampa Bay because of last week, and it's like a nice contrarian spot where Raiders coming off by all that. So now I'm nervous, man. Like I can't take go against the side that broke your model because you like them so much. So, yeah, I think everything you're saying makes sense. I think Tampa Bay's defense probably better than people realize. That was a team that graded out really well defensively from a personnel perspective. If you go out and you rate their players and try to compile a defensive rating for the team like that, you're going to end up with a good defensive rating for that defense. And schematically, it's done well. Also, they're a team that you could argue hasn't faced the best offenses, but overall, I would say that they've performed better than expected. So, I get all the points there. I think that the argument for the Raiders would be the extra prep off the bye, the chance to get guys like Jacobs healthy, who I think has been playing through injury. He picked up an injury in that game against New Orleans and hasn't really been on the injury report to the point where like we thought he was going to miss a game or anything, but I think he could be playing through a little bit of injury based on just the numbers he has. He's done pretty poorly. Seemed like a good spot to get right to. And also, one thing too, I've been stressing with the rookies and the bye weeks. This is what led me to be curious about DeAndre Swift last week. Right, is you're gonna see these rookies get more involved in offenses after bye weeks, mostly for guys like Tua where they're making a quarterback change, right? But also with guys like DeAndre Swift and I think Ruggs. I think Ruggs could be a lot more involved this week, and that, if it happens, is a great thing for the Raiders. Any final thoughts on the thing that broke your model?
I mean, they're absolutely begging you to take Tampa Bay with having this number be so low, which is just always the scariest thing, especially whenever the model backs up that I should be on the public side here. It just, I know I'm going to do it. I don't want to do it, and I just need to temper myself and hopefully slow down.
Yep, for the record, my model has it at 3, so it would make sense from a model perspective for me to take the Raiders also. But I'm going to stay away, man. I'm not going against the side that broke your model. Let's go to the Titans and the Steelers. Steelers, that was my favorite bet of the week last week. I mean, that was never in question. I like that bet so much that on one of these apps that like track your bets for you, I went and bet like first quarter, second quarter, first half. They won everything. they won every quarter. They won every half. It wasn't even close. So here we go. We've got a situation against the Titans where I could see as being another good spot for them, and they're underdogs here. I understand it's in Tennessee, but tell me that Tennessee is a better team than Pittsburgh. I don't know about that, man. I understand that Pittsburgh had a soft schedule to start the season. Everyone looks at it that way. But Pittsburgh's good, and they're probably getting Deontay Johnson back, which is a big thing considering how bad Juju's been. Tell me what you think about your team.
So Deontay Johnson practiced in full today. So did Dave DeCastro. DeCastro is their best offensive lineman. He hasn't really played pretty much the entire year. And running the ball had been an issue, but James Conner's been fantastic the past couple weeks. So you're going to add in the wide receiver everybody thought was going to step in and be the stud. And then you're going to add in their best offensive lineman. And Tennessee can't stop anybody. What am I missing here? I realize Pittsburgh is a short road favorite. Seems kind of strange for an undefeated team to be a dog at home is very odd. But in this case, how do you not like the Steelers? I understand that I'm completely biased. I just think that they are going to continue to score consistently using all their weapons and their receivers, and the defense is really good. And I will say they lost Devin Bush, the starting middle linebacker. He calls all the plays. Robert Spillane is going to take over. He took over and called the rest of the plays the second half after Bush's injury. Cleveland's situation is going to be different here. But Vince Williams will be on the field a ton. He is the primary run-stopping linebacker. He is ready to meet Derrick Henry in the hole repeatedly. And if Ryan Tannehill can go ahead and throw the ball against this defense, I will finally buy in. I've been hesitant. I understand it's been like 18 weeks that Ryan Tannehill's been good, and we have a larger sample size now. But if he can do it against Pittsburgh, I will buy in and say he's good. But until then, I think the Steelers roll and get to 6-0.
And if you want to talk about like strength of schedule and all that, I mean, think about the Titans and who they've played this season. Like they barely beat Denver, Jacksonville, Minnesota. I mean, literally it didn't beat one of those teams by more than 3 points. There's 3-point, 2-point, and 1-point differential there. They played really well and surprised a lot of people against Buffalo when people were unsure if they even got to practice since they weren't allowed to be together with all the COVID stuff. And then against Houston, they essentially covered a game that you could argue maybe they shouldn't have covered. A game that went into overtime, a team that was playing so poorly that they fired their head coach. Like, that's how bad Houston was. They're barely beating these bad teams. The only impressive win they had was against Buffalo. So I don't think that argument stands at all for Pittsburgh and the talent they've played, the teams they've played, and how it just doesn't mean as much. 2 5-0 teams here, but I'd say the 5-0 on the Pittsburgh side is stronger. What do you think?
I agree with you. And, you can't make your own schedule. And this is a game that should have played 2 weeks ago. But because of a COVID situation, here we are. And if this game was played 2 weeks ago, Pittsburgh's probably a bigger favorite. They're probably -4 or -5 in this situation. So my model grades this out of Pittsburgh -3.5. I see a small edge, and I will be on the Steelers, like I said. And if Tennessee proves me wrong here, I would be shocked. This just feels like a situation. If anybody has watched the Steelers, they've really changed their offense completely. Everything's quick. Roethlisberger is not back there. He's not holding the ball anywhere near like he used to because he has so many weapons. He's able to just get them the ball quickly and let them go make plays. It's very smart. And Tennessee had problems, like I said, stopping anybody the past couple weeks. And if they prove me wrong this week, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I round all my lines, but I have this 1.1, so essentially the same as the line here. But I would take the Steelers. It just, from thinking it out, just makes more sense to take the Steelers regardless of what the numbers say. All right, we've got, I think, 2 more games left. Let's talk about the Chargers and the Jaguars. Chargers are at home, 8-point favorites, can't catch a break. It seems like they lose every game at the end here. So when they're facing a team that's getting 8 points, you just take the 8 points and assume it's going to come down to the end and maybe they'll win, maybe they'll lose?
I mean, that kind of seems to be the Chargers' MO, and I know that must be painful for you with your Chargers fan club hat that I'm sure you have sitting behind you somewhere. But in this situation, I kind of personally like the Chargers. My model doesn't. My model has this game at -5 and tells me I should be on Jacksonville, and that's where the edge it comes in. But Jacksonville has been really, really bad, and I think they threw everybody off the scent by winning in week 1, and since then it's pretty much been a downhill slope to the point where they talked about benching Gardner Minshew last week. So if that happens, I don't even know who the backup is in that spot, but I really want to back the Chargers, mostly because of the defense here more than anything. But like you said, the MO and the tradition of the Chargers to blow games certainly feels like even if they're up by 14, they give up a garbage touchdown, end up winning by 7 in this spot. But, my model says Jacksonville. My instincts are saying the Chargers, so I will abstain.
A model says the Jaguars by a little bit here. But come on. I gotta take the Chargers. There's just what's throwing this off is just so much bad luck. It's just like one week after the other, and maybe some of it's bias. I'll give you that. But for this much stuff to happen to where it's like, all right, well, they should have won that game. They definitely could have won that game. To keep saying that every week, I think the Chargers are undervalued here. So. Yeah, I'm going to be on the Chargers, and I think that they are seriously one of the better teams in football right now. It's just not going to be reflected in of course, their record or in a lot of the stats out there. So hopefully they don't even consider Tyrod at any point. I just let Herbert do his thing, and then hopefully Eckler can come back because I know that they're talking about this week his hamstring injury is more serious than not necessarily they thought, but that maybe people were expecting. If they're expecting him back right now, that's just he's not even close. So if they can get Eckler back, that's just maybe their best weapon, certainly one of their best weapons in that offense, guy that Herbert can use in the passing game. But yeah, man, am I just being biased here? Do I need to just stay away from it like you're doing?
I mean, you like the Chargers, I like the Steelers. What week is this? Is it every week? It certainly seems that way.
Yeah, but like I said, I like the Steelers every week too. So I'm not going to let you have the spotlight on the Steelers every week. I want to share that one with you. Because I totally buy into them. But the Chargers, man, like, again, I'm not actually a fan. The Chargers hat that I have is in the form of a ticket. I bet on them. I bet money on them to win the Super Bowl. So that's my fan card. All right, let's move on to the last game. We've got the Rams and the Bears. Rams are at home. They're favored by 6. Looked pretty bad last week, I thought. The Bears are a pretty tough defense. My issue with the Rams is that they're going to have a hard time playing from behind. Like, that's just kind of the way they're built. Is Goff can play okay, fine with a lead, but you're going to have him playing catch up. It's going to be tough. So the question is, do you think the Bears can get ahead early? Because if you do, I would like the Bears a lot at +6.
My model has this around -4, so there's definitely a lean on the Bears and a little bit of value there. Having said that, I think this is a great get-right spot for the Rams and a spot for the Bears to easily drop a game. This is one of those kind of weird how the NFL works type games where everybody's like, oh, the Bears, I can't believe they're 5-1. They've done this, they've done that. The Rams last week looked horrible on Sunday Night Football. Everybody watched that game. So everybody's going to turn around and be betting Chicago, I think, maybe a little bit more. And I'm just going to wait and see if this line comes down and then sneak in. And I will be on the Rams at some point, despite everything that you laid out. And I understand that Jared Goff has not been great. I understand that the Rams offense has struggled at times. But Nick Foles does like to turn it over from time to time. And we have a Rams team that can get pressure before. And it just seems like a spot where unless the Bears jump up early, like you said, I could see a situation where this is, the Rams are up 24-3 in the end of the third quarter and Foles just threw his third interception.
Yeah, it's tough because both of these pass defenses are really good. The Rams are number 1 in net yards per attempt, and the Bears are 5th. So both passing offenses theoretically could be shut down. But I think most people think Foles is bad. If you buy the narrative I just threw out there with Goff not being able to play from behind, then you're going, all right, is this going to be like a 13-6 game? I seriously could see a game turning into something like that. We saw the Rams and Giants have a game like that. We saw the Bears have a couple games like that, one against the Giants, one against the Colts. And it feels like that. There's like the last place I would ever want to look for like DFS plays. But in a situation like that too, where I'm projecting a really low scoring game, I think 6 points is a lot. And I would be on the Bears here. All right. So
and I get it.
Yeah.
I just say I get it completely. It's just one of those come Monday when we're making our showdown slates and we're plugging in the Rams defense as a low on play, thinking this could be something crazy, even though defenses are terrible in showdown. I've been trying to learn and get better at, but like I said, this just feels like a spot where the Rams just kind of explode and kind of do some things and look very good.
I will take the L if Jared Goff tears up the Bears defense, but that would be
tears up is strong. Like I'm thinking like 21-24 shows up, and it's like a 24-7 game. Like I kind of like the under here, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, I think the under is great. But yeah, it's gonna be the Bears for me. So that's all the games. We do this thing at the end here where we decide to pick a certain number. Usually I ask for 1 or 2, and Milo likes to give 4 because he's a helpful guy. So Milo, however many games you'd like to give the people, why don't you let them know what sides you're on?
I'm kind. I'm nurturing. I like to help out. What can I say? And I do that by giving out multiple games. So obviously I should just mention Pittsburgh just because I think they're better. I know you're going to take them too. So but this is kind of a week where I didn't really find a whole lot that really right away I was ready to jump on. Carolina is probably my number 1 game. Too many points, and I will happily take the side getting all the points. So Pittsburgh and Carolina would be two of them. These two are so public that they drive me crazy, but I can't believe I'm actually going to do this. But I got to take Tampa Bay. It broke the model. It really likes it. It's such a public play that it scares me. But the public gets some games right from time to time. And lastly, I don't want to do this either, but I feel like it's a perfect get-right spot. I'm going to take Green Bay as my fourth. So I gave you a spiel on some of these teams. I end up staying away from some of them, but those are the four that I'm going to kind of rock with for right now. What do you got?
Okay, yeah, I've got the Steelers would be a team that I like. It sounds like we're both on them, of course. I'll go with the Bears. I think that's one of the bets that I like the most this week. And man, I want to go with one. I'll say this too. Like, this is not one of my favorite weeks where I look at everything and go, "Oh yeah, this looks like a bunch of value on this game and this game." Like, this is a tough one to try and figure out which sides you're going to want to be on. And like, one of my sides that I was going to be on was the Raiders, and you pretty much just like put a nail in that one. I'm not going to do that.
I'm very happy to nuke that option for you and just take that off the table. Thanks.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I'm fine with it. That's the whole point of having people to talk to and talk you off of sides that you shouldn't be on, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think I'm most comfortable with the Bears, the Steelers, and I'll throw the Chargers in there, even though it's a play that isn't going to be reflected in the model, I don't think. Final adjustments will go up Saturday, but as of right now, it looks like the line is going to favor the other side of that one. But I'm okay with going against lines from time to time. As I talked about last week, my favorite bet was against my model, and it was Pittsburgh when the model said that I should actually be on Cleveland. So, yeah, I'll give those three games as the ones I'm most confident in a slate overall that I don't have a ton of confidence in. So.
I mean, I agree with you completely. This is not a slate that I think kind of lends itself. I think you have a lot of bad teams playing against each other, and you get more variance with bad teams because they can show up and look professional, and other times they can look absolutely horrendous and score 6 points. So that kind of happens. When you have the good teams matching up, it's a little bit easier to kind of assess that.
So if you had to guess the most popular picks this week, what would it be? I would guess that we're going to see the
Tampa Bay.
I was going to say the Chiefs and then Tampa Bay. I think the Chiefs will be more popular, but yeah, I could see it being Tampa Bay. So if you're trailing in your contest, then consider what I said, everything about the Raiders, because I think that's an incredible contrarian leverage type play to leap the field if we're right about the Bucs being popular and the Raiders being contrarian.
I agree with you. I sent you my contest standings. I'm 18-12, so I don't really need to do that, and I can kind of stick with the chalk for now. But there may be a week in the future where I have to do something a little bit unconventional. And I wish I would have listened last week whenever you talked about the Miami line against the Jets being a little bit lower than what it should have been. But instead, I got stuck with a fifth game last week I couldn't come up with, and I ended up with Dallas, and that did not go well. So, when you have to pick 5 games, it's not easy, especially once you come up with these weeks and you like 3 of them and you're like, what am I going to do for my last 2? Where am I going to go? And, take your time, think, look through, see if the lines are different than the contest lines as we get closer to the games. And then, try to make your best decision and avoid being on the public side, except for Tampa this week. That's okay, because I said so.
Yeah, I will say at this stage of the season, usually what I'm trying to do is to be somewhat contrarian, but not do anything like where I think I'm on the worst side necessarily. Like I like the Raiders because they're contrarian, and I also have them as the better side in the model and everything. Later in the season is where you might even take the sides that you don't even think are as good because there's line value on the on one side because of an injury. So there's like an extra 3 points or something. Everyone's going to be on that side. Then you go on the other side. But right now, I'm taking all the line value when it comes. We're doing this show on Wednesday. if there ends up being a line that shifts 2-3 points in value, all of a sudden that becomes my new favorite pick. And I'll just take the line value over the super contest lines, which remains static. It doesn't change. And
it's the same reason I ended up on Kansas City last weekend, just because the line had moved to 6. It was 3.5 in the contest, and it just felt like, let's go.
Exactly. And then later in the season is where you start to maneuver a little bit and start to think about, all right, play this chalk side or fade this chalk side, whatever. But yeah, I appreciate everyone tuning in to hear us talk out the matchups and discuss the strategy and go through all these games. It's a lot of fun. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Catch you next time. Until then, do awesome things.